This movie is phenomenal. I think that every single American needs to see this movie. I got to learn things about Ronald Reagan that I did not know. I got to learn about his childhood. I got to learn about his faith. I got to learn about how he grew up, how he became a movie star, things like that. But more importantly, I got to see some behind the scenes things with very important topics that took place during his presidency that I never knew about. And then as an adult, it just hit me differently. So first of all, I thought the movie was fantastic. I thought that Dennis Quaid did an amazing job. You forget that it's Dennis Quaid playing Ronald Reagan. And for someone like me that grew up watching Ronald Reagan, I felt like it was truly him. His facial expressions, I don't know if they used prosthetics or what they did, but Dennis Quaid knocked it out of the park. So I remember in 1981, I remember when Ronald Reagan was shot, the attempted assassination attempt, and my mother and I both wrote him letters while he was in the hospital and sent them off. I understand millions of people did this. We got a thank you letter that Ronald Reagan had written to the American people and signed it, and then they ended up taking that and making multiple copies of it and sending it to people. So I remember very distinctly when that happened. I can remember when he was up for re-election, and it was Walter Mondale and Ronald Reagan, and I was telling my son, who is 22, about to be 23, I said that was the first time we saw the electoral map was completely red except for one state. It was a landslide victory for Ronald Reagan. My mom used to always say that Ronald Reagan gave America hope, and that's exactly what he did. He was an amazing politician. He was an amazing speaker, and I think that he gave America hope. It was great to see that. I still remember when he stood at the Berlin Wall. He gave that speech and said that,
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I remember that. And that was really the end of communism. So the movie is told from the point of a KGB spy who is John Voight, telling about how did communism fall? How did the Soviet Union fall? And it all went back to Ronald Reagan and Ronald Reagan's policies and who Ronald Reagan was. There were some fantastic scenes with Ronald Reagan being just charming and wooing Gorbachev when they sat down to meet. There were some very funny parts that we laughed audibly out loud, and there were some very sad parts. You know, I remember towards the end of his presidency, I think they did a good job of keeping his Alzheimer's diagnosis hidden for the most part. But I remember towards the end of his presidency, him having some issues with his memory. Of course, they absolutely go into that in this movie. There's one scene where Ronald Reagan is on his ranch. He's wanting to go riding, and the Secret Service man is talking to Nancy Reagan and saying, you know, he doesn't need to ride anymore. He gets lost and things like that. And she's talking about how I can't take that away from him. He loves that. So got to see some actual footage from his funeral when he died. I think it was 2004 when he died at the age of 93. Just a fantastic movie. I've never wanted to be in politics ever. It makes me want to run for political office, which I'm not going to. But one of the really cool things about this movie was it showed how Ronald Reagan tried to reach across the aisle. We've all heard the stories about Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan being a Republican president, Tip O'Neill being a Democratic Speaker of the House. And Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill would fight like cats and dogs until 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, politics was over, and they would go out and they would have a beer, and they were the best of friends. Matter of fact, Tip O'Neill was actually in the hospital when Reagan woke up after surgery after he was shot. So there was a friendship there. There was a civility there that I don't think we see today in American politics. And so I just really want to encourage everyone to go see the movie. Very well done. Acting is great. Definitely one that I think everyone needs to see. All right, guys, that's my review. I hope you like it. I hope you go see the movie, but definitely go check out the movie Reagan. It's fantastic.